I'm Richard Chenoweth. I hold the Graul Chair in the Arts and Languages, and my career has been mainly focused on musical performance for the past 40 years. And here at the University of Dayton, I've taught French horn players and other performers how to make a living as a performer. And I've also been very fortunate to be associated with some outstanding ensembles, such as the Dayton Philharmonic Orchestra, the Santa Fe Opera, and other orchestras and ballet companies. So I've had a very enjoyable life in music. We're talking about Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which is given the designation Opus 67, although there's some question if that's actually the 67th piece that he wrote. There's some question about that. The Fifth Symphony is one of the most discussed pieces in the history of Western symphonic music. The reason for that is that it represents a departure from what was the normal mode of writing for a symphony orchestra in Beethoven's time. For example, the first 5 measures with that rhythmically engaging theme of short, 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 long, short, 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 long, is an enigma. In other words, he starts right off with this gripping figure and then it immediately stops. Then he does it again and stops again. Then for the next 21 measures, he has this development of this short, 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 long theme, mainly in a very small interval, a very small distance between the notes. And then in a 22nd measure, he does the same thing. He stops again. From then on, he develops that rhythmic theme and then comes up with a contrasting lyrical melody that's very soothing and reassuring. But the overall impression of the first movement is one of this kind of ominous tension. And it's also brilliant because it's not just one instrument playing this short, 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 long theme, but it cascades through the orchestra. So you hear all the different voices of the orchestra. Something else worth mentioning is that in symphonies of this day, by people like Haydn and Mozart, there was almost always a very slow introduction. And this was to set the mood and kind of calm the audience down and let them know what they're about to hear. This piece starts right off with this stormy introduction. And it was as if Beethoven was saying, we're going to change the way you listen to music. Because the Beethoven Fifth Symphony draws your ear into it. It's a attention-getting piece. It's an extremely active piece, and it has a lot of variety in its sounds. Another thing that makes this symphony stand out is there's lots of dramatic dynamic changes, sudden shifts of dynamic from very soft to immediately as loud as the orchestra can play. Usually, composers would have a crescendo, starting soft, getting louder, starting loud, getting soft, and kind of ease the audience into these different levels of sound. With Beethoven, he liked the dramatic change of sudden differences in dynamics. The other reason this piece is significant to me is it's probably one of the pieces that I played the most in the orchestra, and my last piece as a professional musician before I retired from playing was Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And it was a very emotional, moving experience for me, and I thought it very fitting that I play this great monument to Western musical thought as my last piece. Something that horn players have to do that a lot of other orchestral musicians don't have to do is oftentimes the music that's printed on the page is not what we played. When Beethoven wrote for the horn, he was writing for the early horn that didn't have valves. And you would put different lengths of tubing in to make your instrument fit the right key of the piece. Well, when they printed the music, they just printed it for whatever horn he wanted, which means that we modern horn players have to look at the music and transpose it to fit our modern instruments. The students who look at this piece of music need to understand that it represents more than just notes on a page by a famous composer. They need to understand that it changed Western thought about music. Prior to this writing of this piece, most of the music for this kind of an ensemble was written for diverting entertainment. It was usually music that was intended to be enjoyed the first time you heard it, but wasn't necessarily intended to be something that required great intellectual thought. This came at a time when there was this emerging middle class who was, they were looking for things that went beyond just entertainment. And it elevated them as well. In many ways, it's kind of a disturbing piece. It plays with the emotions. And people weren't used to this.